Hey, Facebook, it's Elizabeth Nader. We're so happy to be here. If you guys are listening already, I know you're on replay. You know how that goes by now. So if you're listening on replay, tell us where you're listening from. Go ahead and comment down below. We will come back and check those. Any questions you have, we're thrilled to have you here. Everyone else, as you're joining us live, this is such an exciting interview tonight. I've been looking forward to it all week. We're excited for the opportunity to talk to Jack Ciattarelli, who is candidate for New Jersey governor. Music to our ears. Welcome to New Jersey Women for Trump, Jack.
Well, Elizabeth, it's great to be with you. I love your energy and looking forward to being with you and all your listeners.
Well, you know, I said to Bill Spadia last week, don't be intimidated by 28,000 women who are watching this. You're good, right?
Not one bit. Not one
Okay.
bit. We're all for the best for New Jersey.
Well, he wasn't either. So we're thrilled to have you here, Jack, because I know you have a lot to share with us. Now, listen, everybody on this page was not necessarily paying attention the last time we had a governor race. And a lot of things have happened to wake a lot of us up. So that means some people know who you are and some don't have that background. So let's start with, who is Jack? Tell us all about you.
Well, Jack Ciattarelli is a lifelong resident of New Jersey. Born and raised here. It's where my grandparents immigrated 100 years ago, where my parents raised their family. It's where my parents owned a restaurant bar in Raritan Borough in Somerset County, where I was raised. It's where my wife and I have raised our 4 kids. I'm an MBA CPA. So this is where I've passed the CPA exam. I'm a 2-time successful business owner with businesses on Main Street where I employed fellow New Jerseyans. And so I understand small business. I understand Main Street. And I've also had the privilege of serving 2 terms on the municipal level, 2 terms on the county freeholder level in Somerset County, and then 3 2-year terms in the state legislature. I've always termed in myself. Most times didn't take the pay and never took the benefits. So I'm New Jersey through and through. I understand New Jersey. If I may say so, Elizabeth, Phil Murphy does not.
No, yeah, I would agree with you on that. And we have a whole bunch to discuss there. So we're going to get to Murphy here in a little bit. But
Good.
Your background is impressive. And obviously you have the public service experience and the private sector experience, which it really makes you well-rounded. That's incredibly interesting to all of us. But, you know, one thing we want to address right away off the bat, because this is a pro-Trump page, and we are a bunch of women and some men who are incredibly excited about his presidency and getting him reelected, and really the spirit behind, you know, the Trump policies. So, Jack, back in 2015, you had some things to say about Trump that maybe weren't quite as supportive. And I want you to talk about that, because people ask me, he wasn't a big Trump fan. So have Jack answer that question. So let's clear that up. Tell us how you feel about Trump today and talk about the evolution of the way you see him.
Well, I know a great many people, including Republicans, who were not Trump fans in the very, very beginning. And I know what you're alluding to. It's when I called him a charlatan. As I always remind people, in 26 years of marriage, my wife has called me way worse, and we've been A-okay.
I understand that.
Listen, the president's policies have worked. He playing hardball with China, the war on ISIS, border security, the economy, and certainly transforming the federal bench, including the Supreme Court, to conservative justices. His policies have worked for the country. Yeah. We've never seen a lower unemployment rate, particularly amongst the Black and brown community and other minorities. His policies have worked. He deserves to be reelected. And I've cast my vote by mail ballot already and voted for Donald Trump.
Oh, great. Okay. We love to know that. Well, it's been interesting to watch candidates either cozy up to him or distance themselves from him. Republican candidates. It's been interesting to watch. And, you know, today I heard a good story. Laura Ali, who's as you know, the Morris County chairwoman, she told me about a race in Somerset County in Bernardsville, a council race there, that Diane Greenfield and Joanne Robertson, and they are pro-Trump. And you know what? They're doing very, very well. So I don't think that it's obvious that if you align yourself with Trump, that it's a no-win thing in New Jersey. I think New Jersey is starting to change a little bit. What is your opinion of that?
Oh, Elizabeth, I agree 100%. If you look at the rallies that are taking place across the state, we've never seen such energy in New Jersey for a Republican presidential candidate. And I think it's because people agree with his policies, and they know that his policies have worked, and they know that Joe Biden's going to be wrong for the country. So that's why you see this energy. And it doesn't surprise me one bit that local candidates are doing extremely well in places like Bernardsville.
Let's talk about mail-in voting for a little bit, because we say till we're blue in the face, get those ballots in. But what is your opinion about this from Murphy? Why he did this? I think it goes beyond just this election, because I have heard stories, Jack, of people standing in line at a board of elections to turn in their ballot. It's ridiculous. This doesn't make any sense. We could have done it. Let's talk about the psychology behind. I mean, it's obvious, but I want you to weigh in on, why did Murphy put this out there, and do you think it's going to end up hurting us?
Well, listen, call me cynical, but I think the vote by mail executive order, all vote by mail executive order, had a lot to do with the 2 ballot questions on the reverse side of everybody's ballot. He wants the legalization of marijuana, and he wants to extend the current legislative map for another 2 years. There is no reason why we couldn't have voted in person. You can go into a 7-Eleven or a Wawa, slip $1 into a lottery machine, and support his state government by pushing buttons, but yet we can't vote in person. Right. And so what burns me a little bit is, just yesterday, New York started early voting in person. This could have been done. New Jersey was ill-equipped for an all VBM election, Elizabeth. 6.2 million ballots were ill-equipped. And this is the Phil Murphy. All 21 county clerks, black and white, male and female, Republican and Democrat, all 21 county clerks said to the governor, don't do this. And he went ahead and did it anyway.
Yeah, he made their lives miserable. I know, we're lucky to have a great county clerk, Ann Grassi, but man, did he make her life miserable. It's been so difficult. And, I just want to continue to say to everyone who's listening, you guys got to get your ballots in. You got to talk to your neighbors, your friends. We went canvassing today, and it's shocking how many people just still don't understand it. It's beyond them that their governor would take away their right to vote in person, and it's difficult, but this is where we are. So let's get into Murphy. So we've cleared up Trump, right? We know you voted for him, which, thank you very much, Jack. We appreciate that. Let's now shift to the state, because November 3rd is going to be here soon. And once that election is over, we are all going to focus very quickly on winning back our freedoms in this state. And the first that needs to go is Murphy. So let's talk about what's been going on this summer. You announced, I think 8 months ago now, didn't you?
I announced at the end of January. You're right.
You could have never known what we were about to face in March and what happened with the pandemic and the shutdown. And, the whole idea of whether or not he should have shut down, when, and all of that, we are 8 months beyond it now, or 7 months beyond it. So I want you to weigh in on his decisions. I want you to weigh in on, what would you have done differently, or how would you handle this if you're in the governor's role?
So, Elizabeth, there was a lot we didn't know. We didn't know in the very beginning. So you understood the cautious approach. But as I've said all along, we can save lives and livelihoods. The two are not mutually exclusive. We can do both. And this governor has shown no appreciation or empathy whatsoever for New Jersey's small business economy. 565 towns, and every one of them has a main street. You go up and down the main street of those mom and pop shops, and lives have been shattered. Lives have been shattered. So let's think about the inconsistencies of these executive orders. Elizabeth, if you owned a bike shop, you were allowed to stay open to do repairs, but you couldn't sell a bike. Well, Walmart could sell a bike. If you owned a jewelry store on Main Street, you had to close down because you were considered non-essential. That store paid for your family. It paid for all your expenses in life. It provided your living. Who is the governor to say you're non-essential? But yet the jewelry counter at Walmart got to stay open. So it was the inconsistencies that really infuriated people, and rightfully so. Here's what I would have done different. We knew from the very beginning that the most vulnerable population were nursing home patients. The first deaths in the country were in Washington State. And in Washington State, they were in the nursing home. This governor ordered nursing homes to take in COVID-19 patients. He never treated nursing homes like hospitals. So he never got them PPEs or testing kits. And it's orders such as that only made matters worse here in New Jersey. One thing I would never have done is shut down the county and state parks. Mental health is so critically important. He shut down county and state parks, which are usually extremely wide open spaces. He shut down golf courses, again, disregarding mental health here. He never got PPEs to the EMTs that work in all the volunteer rescue squads across the state. I mean, these are just some of the things. And it's the reason why New Jersey led the nation in nursing home deaths. And of course, our economy has been terrible, particularly on Main Street.
Yeah, the nursing home deaths are tragic, and I hope we don't let that go. We need to keep pressing that issue. And I think that as a fellow New Jerseyan, I think we're all responsible people for the most part. We agreed to give him those 2 weeks. We all said we're going to do the right thing, and all of us who are business owners, we shut down and we said we're in, right? Because that's the spirit of the American people, and New Jersey people want to help their neighbors, so we were in. But that was a 2 week to flatten the curve, and all of a sudden now, as of yesterday, he's now extended the emergency order again for 30 more days. At this point, I don't even see the science. I don't understand what's going on. I can only imagine it's a power grab. How are we supposed to look at this any other way?
I agree with you 100%. So he has to extend the emergency order because if he didn't, that means that we'd be voting in person.
Yeah.
And so he's going to extend it at least through the end of November to cover election day, to cover his backside, if you will. So again, it's been all the inconsistencies and the havoc it's wreaked, particularly on Main Street, and for people whose lives have been shattered. You and I both know a great many people. I mean, over 300,000 New Jerseyans work in the hospitality industry, restaurants. Connecticut has been at 70% indoor dining. We're still at 25%. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
We know how to be responsible in keeping each other and ourselves safe. We know how to protect the most vulnerable populations. It's time to open up the economy and get currency circulating again, because if we don't, the mental cost, the human cost of prolonged economic shutdown will be just terrible.
It's heartbreaking, and we're starting to see a lot of that. Before we went live, we were talking about his polls, and it's questionable to us. We're seeing that I think the latest one was 60% approval. Yet all I hear are people just suffering and frustrated and feeling powerless, and we've lost our checks and balances. It's as though Trenton is nothing else but what Murphy decides, and no one else has a say. So how do you explain that 60% approval rating?
Well, he has hijacked our democracy and mortgaged our future, and I think only increased the exodus from New Jersey. But in this pandemic, Elizabeth, all 50 governors got a bump, including Republican governors in blue states and Democratic governors in red states. You see that whenever there's a crisis.
Yeah.
Fact is, he's already down a significant number of points from the earliest polls that had him at his highest point. And for all during those polls, he's been underwater on the economy. So I think people realize that his executive orders aren't working. He's not providing the kind of leadership that New Jerseyans want. And I see a real pathway to victory here for a Republican.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the really important things to the spirit of the people on this page is really the freedom to choose how we live, right? The freedom to raise our children the way we want to, the freedom to make medical decisions for our family. A lot of freedoms that we have seen stripped away, and we were willing to give up some of those in the moment, but now they seem to have been taken away for the long term. And a lot of us are concerned that this is going to continue. There have been some bills introduced lately that have been all about mandating things and telling us what to do. So what would you do differently? Because I can tell you that the idea that you're going to tell us how to raise our family is not one that's going to go over well with the people on this page and many others that I know.
Well, Elizabeth, I always ask the question. I mean, Melinda and I are 4 children now in their 20s. So we're done raising children, if you will. They're 25, 23, 22, and 20. Yeah. But the question I always ask rhetorically all during this Murphy administration is, when did we abdicate parenting? When did we become a nanny state?
Yeah.
Since when does government raise our children? So when you think about the new green curriculum in our public schools, where we're teaching about global warming across all subject matters, when you think about the new sex education curriculum, when you think about the new LGBTQ curriculum, listen, as Republicans, we're the party of inclusivity. But we're also the party of individual freedoms.
Right.
And we don't have government controlling every aspect of our lives. Right. So these are just some examples of how Phil Murphy and his wife, Tammy, believe in the nanny state.
Yeah.
Okay. They're taking our freedoms. Yeah. And certainly their support of mandatory vaccines is another example.
That's right. Absolutely. And as you know, that's one that a lot of us fought last January. And
successfully.
Yes, right. Successfully. And, we've shown that we can do that. That was an incredible experience. But the war rages on. And it wasn't a war to tell people what to do. It was a war to say, we want to choose. And this is really what's, I think, behind the excitement about Trump, is that he's about individual responsibility, and he's about you making your decisions for your family. And Murphy's about telling us what to do, to the point where I don't know what you're doing for Thanksgiving, but I hope you're not inviting a lot of people, because he wants to tell you where, how, maybe even what to serve at Thanksgiving at this point. I'm being ridiculous, but it seems crazy the amount of detail that he is involved in our lives, and we're actually expected to follow that.
New Jersey is not a progressive state. The governor has adopted this progressive agenda, which is what only accelerates the nanny state. It's not right for New Jersey. And I think people agree with what you're saying, Elizabeth. I know that I do.
Yeah. Well, the other thing we want to talk about is economics. Let's get into that a lot more, because you have a strong background in that. And I know before the pandemic even happened, and you've always run on that. You've always talked about that. New Jersey now is in more trouble than it's ever been, not just with unemployment numbers, but businesses leaving the state. Our property taxes are out of control. And now with the additional money that he's grabbing, we're going to see property tax hikes. I don't see how we avoid them. It's becoming just impossible to live here, make a living, and raise your family. What would you do differently? That's a huge question. So I want you to approach any aspect of your economic plan that you can, because this is going to be a big part of your candidacy next year.
Well, just pre-pandemic, Elizabeth, we were the highest property taxes in the nation, the worst business climate in the nation, the second worst public pension problem in the nation. And those three crises in particular paralyze us fiscally and ruin us economically. It's getting harder and harder to achieve your American dream here in New Jersey. We lead the nation in out-migration. 2/3 of New Jerseyans want to leave. And another dirty little secret about New Jersey that's really not all that complimentary: we do a great job of graduating K through 12 students in our public and private high schools. The majority that go out of state to college, the fewest come back.
That's right.
We lead the nation in the fewest that come back. We've got to get people believing they can achieve their American dream here again in New Jersey. And I was an MBA CPA who's owned two very successful businesses and employed fellow New Jerseyans. I have a very specific plan on how to fix New Jersey with regard to property taxes, the business climate, and solving the public pension crisis. And then and only then will we lay the groundwork for prosperity here in New Jersey.
Well, let's talk specifically about property taxes, because this is so personal. And I think sometimes people hear a lot of what you just said. And if they're not part of the pension plan, they don't think about it. Or if they're not a small business owner, they don't think about it, right? But every one of us who's a homeowner is affected by property taxes. So can you go into more detail about that? Because it is now an even more urgent issue as a result of all of the borrowing now that he's grabbing, all the money that he's grabbing. It's going to affect that even more. So can you speak specifically about property taxes?
And by the way, he's only made things worse with this last budget, which increased income taxes, increased personal taxes, business taxes, rather, and a new tax on health insurance. And then, of course, the $4.5 billion in borrowing that we all have to pay back through property taxes if need be. So he's only made matters worse. What a lot of people don't realize, Elizabeth, is 60 to 70% of anyone's property tax bill in this state is the school tax.
Right.
The municipal tax is a small portion. The county tax is a small portion. But the majority of anyone's property tax is comprised of the school tax. And the reason why it's so high is because the way the state distributes state aid for schools. We've been doing it this way for 40 years. 70% of state aid for schools go to less than 10% of the districts. And it's no coincidence that in those districts, you have a great deal of waste and excess spending. So I will put in place a new school funding formula that is a more flatter and equitable distribution of state aid, and that will help lower property taxes in the suburbs. You and I live in towns in which we pay for schools twice.
Right.
Our income taxes pay for the schools in Jersey City, and our property taxes pay for our schools. We've been doing it that way for 40 years. It makes the middle class poorer in the suburbs.
Right.
And so Bill Murphy doesn't change this because he stands with the special interests. We stand with everyday hardworking New Jerseyans.
Yeah, big difference. Huge difference. And I feel like, and many people share this, that he just doesn't understand us. He just doesn't understand New Jersey. He doesn't understand what it's like to try to make a living here. And one would have thought with his background, it appeared to be a business background, but it's really not. It's different when you sign the front of a check or the back of the check. It's a very different experience. What is his disconnect? Why did he not bring fiscal responsibility to this state?
Well, Elizabeth, I think it's simply this. He wasn't born here. He wasn't raised here. He didn't go to college here. He never owned a business here. He's not New Jersey. And in 14 months, it's my job to make sure that he's not the governor any longer. So that's what my campaign is all about. He really does not understand New Jersey, and he's not fixing it. He's only making it worse.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely is making it worse. The other thing that we're losing besides families moving out is we're losing businesses. And the only kind of influx we're getting right now is out of New York City. And it's a strange experience where northern New Jersey real estate is going crazy right now because people are looking to flee New York City, but it's really not a true bump, right? It's only
Not a
because
true
of
bump.
that. It's not a
No,
true
we have
bump.
a great many people moving out, and my gubernatorial platform is very, very specific on how to get young people to take root here, and how to allow seniors to retire here, but also how to have people start new businesses here. It has a great many incentives that are all fiscally responsible that will change the perception of New Jersey overnight.
Yeah.
And we need to do that, Elizabeth. We need to declare war on Pennsylvania, Delaware, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, because that's where we're losing people to.
Yes, we
And so, listen, this is a competitive race. Do we or do we not want to compete?
right.
Bill Murphy's answer is to tax people more and then give it away.
Yeah.
That has never worked. It's
Yeah.
never worked.
Yeah.
Let's unleash capitalism. That's what Donald Trump has done at the national level. What you'll see from Governor Ciattarelli is a pro-business, pro-economic growth, less regulatory intensive environment in which we can unleash New Jersey's potential.
So do you think you can attract business back to the state? Because we've lost so much of it, and with it go the jobs and revenue bases and all that. Do you think you can get them back?
Absolutely. And here's the first step. I'll share with one plank with you from my gubernatorial platform, Elizabeth. We've all heard of the Delaware Corporation. New Jersey should adopt Delaware's bylaws for corporate governance. Nevada did that years ago and took off. There's no reason why New Jersey shouldn't adopt Delaware's bylaws for corporate governance. Do we or do we not want to win? Listen, everybody wants financial security and economic opportunity. Everybody wants an opportunity to achieve their American dream. We can make that happen here in New Jersey, but not without significant reforms.
Yeah.
I'm the reform agent. My gubernatorial platform is all about significant reforms.
I love that plank. That's a brilliant idea as an entrepreneur to bring the Delaware thing here. I love that. So let's just shift for a second, even though it has great economic input as well, or impact, I should say, which is immigration. Now, we're not talking about it from the standpoint of a border. We're talking about it from the standpoint of what are we giving to illegal immigrants, and what Murphy has done in that regard, and what he's done with driver's license, and what he's doing now with illegal immigrants and benefits and all of that. Can you just tell us where you stand on these issues and how you would address them?
Well, one of the reasons why the president's policies have worked is because he clamped down on border security.
Yeah.
That decreased significantly, if not eliminated, the influx of illegal immigrants, which doesn't undercut the labor market. It has the opposite effect. So that's why you saw job and wage growth in the first 4 years of the Trump administration. Here in New Jersey, I don't know why we have a governor that continues to encourage illegal immigration, whether it's driver's license for illegal immigrants, professional licenses now for illegal immigrants, sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. Why are we encouraging illegal immigration? If you believe we need a new national immigration policy at the federal level, so be it. But you can't solve this at the state level. You'll make your state an outlier.
Yeah.
So by putting forth these kind of policies, he's only making matters worse here in New Jersey.
Yeah. Not only that, but now he's actually letting felons out of jail. I don't know that anyone really understands that move either. Is this all about votes? I mean, I don't mean to be simple-minded about it, but can you weigh in on that move as well? It doesn't make any sense to us.
Well, listen, the cynical part in me says that what he's trying to do is protect a Democratic vote going forward. I believe it's going to backfire. New Jersey is not a progressive state. And Elizabeth, to your point, I will tell you, even Democrats that live in the suburbs, which are considered soft Democrats, because they're very sensitive to things like property taxes.
Yeah.
They're not excited about driver's license for illegals or voting rights for parolees. These policies are wrong for New Jersey. At the end of the day, New Jersey really is a fiscally conservative, socially moderate state where people enjoy their freedoms and want their freedoms. This progressive agenda is wrong for New Jersey.
Yeah. And it's right now, what's so difficult is that we feel as though, Jack, we have no power. We feel as though we have a king. And I don't even say that in a mocking way. It truly feels this way as a resident of New Jersey, as though we have no voice. And even the people we put in office have no ability right now to change what's going on. What can they do? I mean, if he continues to have more 30 days right after the election, it seems as though nothing's going to change. I think we are at the point of fatigue and exhaustion, and we want to be able to have some say in what happens in government. So what do we do as people right now while we're waiting to vote him out next November?
Well, Elizabeth, if your group has proved anything, is that we do have a choice and we can put up a good fight and we can win. We have to continue to be a very loud opposition to his policies. I will tell you, it has been terribly disappointing how the democratically controlled legislature has just kind of stood down to him and not stood up to him. I mean, what we're seeing right now is what happens when a Democratic governor works in partnership with this Democratic legislature. At least when we had a Republican governor, we kept the monster in the cage. The monster has now been let out of the cage, and we're seeing the implications for New Jersey. Listen, this is what gubernatorial elections are all about. So I'm extremely excited about what next year presents in terms of a change for New Jersey. What I tell people is, if you want change, you need to make a change. The Democrats have controlled the legislature for close to 2.5 decades.
Wow.
Are you better off? 11 years ago, the state budget was $29 billion. It's $40 billion today. Are you better off? Give us a chance. And I mean this when I say this, Elizabeth. If people like what they see and hear out of Jack Ciattarelli, don't vote for me unless you plan on voting for my Republican legislative candidates down ballot. The entire legislature's up for election next year. Give us Republicans a chance. If you don't like the job we do 2 years in, you can give the assembly back to the Democrats in the Ciattarelli midterms. And I won't run for a second term. But I guarantee you, you give Republicans a chance, you're going to like what you see.
Yeah, I think that's a good message. But Jack, as a Republican in this state, it's very hard sometimes to find the energy to get excited. You know, we're all doing it now, and Trump has infused us with that, but we feel disenfranchised. And, you know, the hope is that we can change that next year. Do you think we can have a red wave state in a state way next year?
Elizabeth, that is my job. And I got to tell you something, you're going to like the energy you see from this candidate and from this campaign. Just as Donald Trump has energized people across the nation, and a great many Democrats are now voting Republican for all the reasons we talked about earlier. That's my job. And listen, I've won 7 elections in this state. 6 of the 7 times it's been in races where Democrats outnumber Republicans. I've been fortunate enough to always have the ability to get people energized and believing that I have people's best interests at heart. I'm excited about the campaign. You're going to like what you see. And I see a pathway to victory for us. And that includes a Republican majority in the legislature.
Man, that would be amazing and so exciting. And I know a lot of people are willing to put into the work to see that happen. You've told us a lot tonight, but I want you to kind of sum it up. I had someone here post, you know, tell us why you're that candidate. We want to fight for you. And I can tell you, Jack, when the women in this community say they want to fight for you, and the men too, they will fight for you. I've seen it firsthand.
I believe it, Elizabeth.
It's true. And everyone in Trenton knows who we are. They've heard our voices and our drums beating, and we don't give up when we see the opportunity to make a change. So, Jack, I want you to summarize it, why you are the candidate. And listen, I know we have a lot of chance to hear it for you between now and the primary, but right now we want to keep this energy going. So summarize for all these amazing patriots listening to you why you are their candidate.
Well, my story is a New Jersey story. Again, it's where my grandparents immigrated. It's where my parents raised their family. It's where Mailin and I have raised our family. I'm New Jersey through and through. And I've owned 2 very successful businesses. We spend our summers at the Jersey Shore. Phil Murphy can't say any of those things. So in that sense, we are very, very, very different. I also have a very, very unique resume. As an MBA, CPA, and business owner, I get it. Phil Murphy does not. And I always say this, and people agree, and they know it. New Jersey is broken. The worst property tax in the nation, the worst business climate in the nation, the worst public pension system in the nation. And those 3 things paralyze us economically and deny people from achieving their American dream. And so I have a very, very specific plan. It's what you would expect from an MBA CPA on how to fix New Jersey. So over the course of the next 12 months, right after Trump's win on November 3rd, people are going to like what they see and hear out of Jack Ciattarelli. And it'll be in stark contrast to Phil Murphy. And let's not forget, Elizabeth, the majority party in New Jersey are the 2.4 million unaffiliated independent voters that lean right. I say advantage Republicans. And we've got a lot of soft Democrats in the suburbs that are not happy with Phil Murphy's policies that have now been turned on and energized by Donald Trump. There's a pathway to victory here for us. One last thing, Elizabeth. In the past 4 decades, 4+ decades, no Democratic incumbent governor has been reelected. Not Jim Florio, not Jim McGreevey, and not John Corzine. Our Republican governors have all served 2 terms. So we've controlled the executive branch way more than they have. So as I like to say, Phil Murphy is one and done in 21.
Whoa, I love that saying. And that's a ray of hope. So, from your lips to God's ears, right? I mean, we got to work hard and hold on till next November when we can change everything. And I've heard you say this before about Murphy. He says, I'm going over to the shore. What is it he says? It's so not Jersey.
No, we say we go down to the shore. He says over the shore. He's trying very hard, Elizabeth. He's trying real hard, but he's just not New Jersey. And listen, when you're the governor of a state that has 565 towns, you don't show up to a 5K wearing sweatpants that prominently feature the name of your hometown from Massachusetts.
Ooh,
you don't go on Fox News and say that the Bill of Rights is above your pay grade.
Oh,
you don't go on a stage at Rowan University and say if taxes are your issue, we're probably not your state. He's also said that he wants to make New Jersey the California of the East Coast, a progressive blue beacon. We don't want any of those things.
No.
Just fix the damn state.
Stop. I hope we hear you repeating those often during the next year, because you're right. He said them, he meant them, and we don't want them.
We don't want them.
Jack, how can people get involved with you right now? I know we're focused on November 3rd, but it's going to be here in the blink of an eye, and then we've got to save this state, and we want to get to work on November 4th. So how can people get involved?
Well, Elizabeth, although I declared in January, we've kept the campaign in fourth gear up until after Election Day. And the reason we've done that is because we want to be respectful of all those that are on the ballot this year and do all we can to help them get elected.
Right.
So while I have a full campaign team, we've been working feverishly all around the state to help get Republicans elected by doing lit drops. We even bought 3,000 Trump lawn signs and distributed them to many places that couldn't afford to buy them. Right. So we're team players, but we will kick it into fifth gear right after the election. And you'll see all the traditional type of promotion from us. Right. In the meantime, people can learn more about the campaign by following us on social media. And certainly there's the website, jack4nj.com. That's Jack, the number 4, nj.com.
That's awesome. Well, Jack, do you have any signs left? Because my Trump signs keep getting stolen. So if you have any, let me know.
Well, we dropped some off at the campaign headquarters in Morris. So if there's some left, that's where they are, Elizabeth.
It's the most popular item this November, right? The Trump signs, right? Listen, Jack, you're amazing to speak with. I appreciate you coming on here. And I think a lot of people are going to get excited about your candidacy. So thank you for spending the time. We need to have you back. So let's focus on November 3rd. And as soon as that's over, let's please get King Murphy out of office so we can continue to live our lives in New Jersey, raise our families, and enjoy our freedoms and our rights in a way that we're not able to do right now. Jack, thank you so much.
Elizabeth, thank you. It's great to be with you and all your followers, and I am looking forward to next time.
That's awesome. All right, guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks, Jack.